Miraculous World specials are just one of those inevitabilities that we as a collective must face. Like death and taxes. They'll come, and most of them will be great. But, as always, there will be a few stinkers thrown into the mix, just to ensure you don't get too comfortable there. And because of that fact, barely anyone was even talking about Miraculous World Tokyo before it released, much to my chagrin. I couldn't understand why people were sleeping on such a massive creative wellspring. I mean, look at this! Nothing in Miraculous has ever looked like this before. Well, except the PV, but we don't talk about the PV around these parts lest we get swatted. Regardless, this special looked like it was going to deliver the goods, give us a generational masterpiece that redefined not only what it meant to be a Miraculous World special, but a piece of art in general. And then tragedy struck. Miraculous World Tokyo released.
Wait!
No! My worst fears have come true. Man, what can I say? I suppose I'll start with this. I finally understand why this special barely had any hype behind it. It's because, there's really not a lot going on here worthy of us whooping and hollering like crazed monkeys. Miraculous World Tokyo comes in guns a-blazing, ready to hit anything and everything that I personally like about the show with the less compelling innator. And I suppose I should stop beating around the bush and tell you what I mean. Here's why Miraculous World Tokyo is not stellar. Stellar Force? More like, bruh. Alright, I'll admit that I took a page out of Lila's book for a second and told you all a wee little fib. Because it wouldn't be fair of me to start ripping on this special without at least telling you all what I liked about it. Yes, there were bright spots here. Not many, but they are there, and ignoring their existence to pretend that this is hot garbage isn't productive for anyone. The most obvious plus here is, of course, the animation. Not the 3D animation at the beginning and end, heck no! The anime art style we, thankfully, spend most of our time exploring. The colours are beautiful and vibrant, the characters have never been more expressive than they are now, and you can really tell that the animators were incredibly excited to shift gears this time around and tell us a story through a completely unique medium. Marinette especially just oozes charm in a way I never thought she ever could. These facial expressions make me laugh every time I see them and do a lot to make me forget about how nothing the story she's engaging with is. Sorry! Good things first, good things first. Ahem. Speaking of Marinette, it isn't just her enthusiasm that I love, but her relationship with Kagami. It's expanded on quite heavily in this special, and I really love that. Marinette and Kagami's friendship is by far my favourite dynamic in the entire show. Marinette's over-the-top quirkiness is contrasted so perfectly with Kagami's no-nonsense demeanour, but you can really tell just how much these two care about each other. Kagami doesn't find Marinette annoying, and Marinette is able to look past Kagami's cold exterior and see the person she truly is deep inside. Neither of them really need to outwardly express their love for one another. It's reflected in their actions. Kagami asked Marinette to come to Tokyo with her, not only to help out the heroes there, but also because deep down, she knows Marinette is the only person who can help her with her personal problems that lie there. Of course, just because they don't need to, doesn't mean they don't. This whole special's theme revolves around addressing your feelings, after all, and it would go against the narrative for these two to not share some heartwarming moments of their own to showcase that. And boy do they. There's this one scene in the middle that I really love, and might actually be my favourite out of all of them in this special. Kagami's crying from guilt surrounding her belief that she's responsible for Stellar Force's dysfunction, and Marinette hugs and comforts her. Kagami's lived a life of sorrow and loneliness all her life, and that seriously damaged her ability to socialize. And Marinette, being Kagami's first ever friend, breaks through to her and manages to drag her out of this pit of despair. And this gesture matters to Kagami, because Marinette matters to Kagami. The reason these two complement each other so well is due to Marinette's bubbly optimism being a ray of sunshine that pierces through the stormy clouds that are Kagami's worries. Kagami's story has always resonated with me intimately. Seeing this girl who was isolated her entire life finally learn what it means to have a friend through Marinette makes every interaction they share that much more meaningful. Everything they do together is stuff Marinette's done time and time again with her other friends. But these minuscule acts of kindness and companionship are all firsts for Kagami. Grabbing some orange juice together, taking photos together, talking with one another as equals, hugs, consolations after a difficult day. None of this would be nearly as tear-jerking if Kagami had experienced these things before, if you ask me. And that's exactly what I hate about Miraculous World Tokyo. Surprised you, didn't I? Yep, I've buried the lead long enough. Let's dive into the absolute biggest problem I have with this special. Miraculous World Tokyo Stellar Force's big claim to fame is the introduction of, you guessed it, the Stellar Force. Tokyo's last line, or rather first line, maybe only line of defense when the biggest threats to the city rear their ugly heads. And I do mean ugly.
Ugh, it's hideous!
So, what do we know about the Stellar Force? Well, in order to answer that question, I'm going to name as many of these guys as I possibly can from memory, and list a small grab bag of personality traits I managed to decipher. Miki, the leader, headstrong and abrasive. Kazuno, the insecure and altruistic one with an unnecessary connection to Kagami. Oh boy, Lord give me strength. Kiss. The fashion guru, I guess? Okay, that's it. That's all the ones I can remember. 3 out of 12 heroes. I can only remember a quarter of them. And that third one is only stuck in my brain because of his weird R name. Can't believe I said that, I'm sorry. There are too many heroes here, I'm sorry. Their presence doesn't add anything at all to the story and just serves as poster fodder more than anything else. Remember back during season 3 and 4 when the writers were just introducing so many heroes that it started to bloat the cast even more than it already was? Well, this is that problem, but somehow even worse. Season 6 at least managed to bounce back and make me care about the tertiary heroes by giving us episodes that focused on their characters in a bit more depth than what we're used to. That is to say, none at all. The Stellar Force has nothing to them. The 3 characters whose names I mentioned aren't even the worst example of how aggressively empty this cast is. For example, even though I cannot for the life of me remember the rest of their names, I'll give it another go and at least recall the personality of some of the others. This red guy keeps trying to come up with the team name for them and fails until he settles on Stellar Force. Cool. This one looks like Willow from the Owl House, and I cannot for the life of me tell you what she's like, Bob, forgive me. This one likes the heroes in Paris? I don't know, this one wanted food, I guess? This one's naturey? This one's orange. Stop! Don't make me do this anymore! No, sorry, I looked at the rest off screen, Lord have mercy on my soul. This one made a one-off remark about computers and hacking, so I guess that's her thing, whatever. This one looks like what would happen if Chloe went through an emo phase. This one hugged Kagami, so yay. And it also didn't have a single line in this entire special. God help us all. As you can probably tell, I'd have about as much fun playing with a bag of rocks than I would watching these 12 nobodies do literally anything at all. Yes, that includes the 2 main characters, the ones we're supposed to latch onto and care about even a little bit, Miki and Kazuno. Please forgive me if I butchered that pronunciation, I'm not Japanese. Let's start with Miki. As stated earlier, she's the leader of the group who's brash, abrasive and headstrong. She isn't afraid to speak her mind about anything to anyone, and thus she's the most vocal about the team's inability to work together for even a single mission. She's in love with Kazuno and has been since they were kids. Yep, they even pulled the whole childhood friend crush anime trope on us. How do we know this? Because she just outright tells it to Marinette when she inquires about this secret crush. A blatant violation of the show don't tell rule, if I do say so myself. Anyway, Kazuno also loves Miki. Miki knows that and still won't tell him because he won't tell her. These 2 really seem like a reverse Adrianette, don't they? So, do we get any insight into why these 2 are the way they are? I'll get back to you on that one when it comes to Kazuno, but for Miki, Kind of? Kagami and Kazuno have a talk at the end of the special where Kagami asks Kazuno what he sees in Miki, since she's so aggressive and tempestuous to everyone around her. And Kazuno just tells her that Miki's parents move around a lot, so she's learned not to get too attached to anyone. Wow. It sure would have been nice to actually see that behavior coming from Miki herself, instead of just having her innermost character flaws and whole backstory that informs everything about her be force-fed to us via the words of some other guy. If Miki worries about holding close friendships because of her tumultuous life, maybe foreshadow that some level? Show us her house, how everything's always packed up in suitcases scattered around the rooms just in case the parents need to make a last minute getaway? Show us Miki maybe caring about her friends a little too much through a smile or something that just barely escapes before she pulls back and pushes everyone else away again? Have her wrestle a bit more with her love for Kazuno by showcasing her fear of losing him. Explain why she is the way she is through her. I can't believe I even have to say this. If you're going to tie a character's flawed behavior to their backstory, then let that speak for itself through said character. Instead, the writers show us Miki throwing her weight around, being annoying and bossy and short-fused, and then just pauses, turns to the camera, and yells to us,
You guys, this isn't actually what she's like. She really does care. Source? Trust me, bro.
And because of that basic rule, show don't tell, being chucked out the window, Miki barely has any depth to her character, making it ridiculously hard to even fathom caring about her. I don't even know why she's at the front of the poster here. She doesn't feel like a main character to me at all. In fact, Kazuno gets more focus than she does by a country mile. Which brings us to him. Yep, this freak of nature deserves his own section because I have that many problems with him. No, you misunderstand. I don't merely have an issue with the way his character is written, no. My problems lie far, far deeper. So deep, in fact, that they reach his very essence. And I wish that essence would just go away. Go somewhere else. Never come back. I really, really dislike this guy. More so than I thought I would going into the special. And why is that, you may ask? Well, because he retroactively makes Kagami's character arc less meaningful. I went on and on about how much I loved Kagami and Marinette's friendship earlier, and the reason for that is because Kagami never had any friends before moving to Paris, making Marinette her first ever real friend, something that I loved so very much. But Kazuno swoops in and takes a hatchet to her entire arc just to create a forced conflict between them, one that I do not care about in the slightest. In fact, it isn't just Kazuno that causes a fire to be lit underneath me, but the entire group. All along, this gaggle of quirky people knew Kagami and were in fact friends with her. I thought Kagami's whole thing was that she didn't know how to socialize because of her loneliness and isolation, but somehow she actually had 12 other amigos before Marinette? Come on! And Kazuno just makes this even worse. Because yes, I can somewhat rationalize the nobody heroes being Kagami's friends. Like, if I really try hard enough. Because they barely have anything to them at all, I just pretend that they don't exist. But, very unfortunately, I cannot do the same for Kazuno, because his relationship with Kagami is impossible to ignore. It's the very foundation that the special's whole premise is built upon. And here's what that foundation is. Kagami managed to get Tomoe to send her to a school for the first time. There she meets Kazuno and these annoying people who I don't want to exist either. Believe me, Kazuno isn't alone in feeling my venomous distaste. He's kind to her, Miki's abrasive, and they have a pseudo-rivalry that doesn't go anywhere. Kagami falls in love with Kazuno and they spend more time with one another. But, unfortunately, Kagami has to leave for Paris because of Tomoe's wishes, meaning she has to leave Kazuno behind, which she feels very horribly about. So she and Kazuno go for one last round of Dance Dance Revolution because I guess they bonded through dancing? Sure? Kagami wants to give a letter to Kazuno explaining the situation, but can't, and runs away, saying that their relationship is torturous for her. Anyway, this makes Kazuno doubt himself and his ability to be a hero, causing the dysfunction in the group, because they need him to do their weird dance of devotion looking thing to power up the big thing to do the thing. I am not rewatching the special to get a better look at what it is. You can't make me. I did my time already. So, Where do I even begin with this? First of all, I want to say that I do not buy Kagami and Kazuno's relationship, even a little bit. And that's because the writers didn't put in enough effort to get me to care about Kazuno. He's just a plain old nice fella who doubts himself, and that's it. I don't give two hoots about his struggles, and I don't like what his existence does to Kagami's character either. Because now, instead of Kagami's isolation in Tokyo being contrasted with her abundance of new friends and experiences in Paris, loving Adrian, Felix, Marinette, and meeting all her new pals? She also had a crush on this nothing burger of a boy and seemed fairly chummy with the rest of his friends. Even though she kept her distance, that clearly wasn't enough for them to hate her. Look how happy they are to see her. Look at how Kagami's presence in Tokyo affects Kazuno. Kagami clearly had a meaningful relationship with these people, and her unforeseen escape to Paris with her mother doesn't seem to have affected any of these people besides Kazuno. Granted, how could it? None of these side characters are actually characters. Again, they're just poster fodder. Kazuno's the only one we're expected to really care about, despite his insecurities barely being delved into. This single flashback is the Freudian excuse we're given for his lack of confidence in himself, and they don't give him enough screen time to flesh out this flaw in any meaningful way. He and Kagami barely share any scenes together, which I get is the point to showcase how upset both of them feel after their last encounter, but all it serves is to give even less credence to the idea that these two are super close. And by the time he and Kagami actually share a meaningful heart-to-heart, the first time in this entire special Kazuno feels like someone worth rooting for because of his connection to a character I actually care about, his insecurities just up and vanish afterwards. Yes, really. So not only does this new guy show up and ruin Kagami's character arc through his very existence, the writers barely do anything interesting with him until it's too late. He doesn't have a meaningful rapport with Kagami, Miki, or anyone else. It's completely backwards to me. Why even bring this guy into this story if all he does is cause a narrative earthquake that destroys what I once loved about Kagami and ends up devaluing her growth across the series? It's a big problem I have with Chloe too. Yes, Chloe catching a stray. Sorry guys, I can't help myself. This awful flashback in derision demonstrates Chloe to be even more ruthless and callous than she was even back in Season 1. And that's because this flashback is written with Season 5 Chloe in mind, causing it to make very little sense in retrospect. Kazuno and the rest of these frustrating half-retcon-inducing cardboard cutouts do the same to Kagami. The implication that Kagami had them in her life and cherished them somewhat before the events of the show takes place feels out of character for her. Season 2 Kagami was a lot more choosy about who she shows her heart to, just Adrian for the most part, and she says that she'll get to know Marinette, but she's pretty cold to her in Season 3 until Ikari Gozen. She doesn't seem to care about anyone other than Adrian because she was just a basic love rival back then. But this version of Kagami apparently also developed a relationship with Kazuno, and that's meant to be believable? I assumed that this stoic nature of hers was because of her mother's abuse, but now this altercation with Kazuno has been thrown into the mix and messed everything up. I guess both could be true at the same time, but one of those reasons is infinitely more interesting and compelling, and tragic for that matter, than the other. Man, I can't do this anymore. TLDR, I don't like Kazuno. His existence hurts Kagami. What are you gonna do? Anyway, what's next before we call it quits? Oh yes. I was not expecting the New York special of all things to have something over the Tokyo special, but it does. And that's when it comes to the villains. I didn't like the New York special, but at least it had some pretty darn cool villains. I love Hulkmoth, and Techno Pirate was also pretty fun. See, it isn't just the familiar faces that draw me in. If done right, new villains can grip me just as hard as my old favorites. Miraculous World Tokyo didn't get the memo. These villains are the most boring villains in the entire show. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, should I? In a special where the new heroes were boring as heck, it's fitting that the villains would follow suit. The main antagonist is the Modeler, a guy who, I think he turns people into monsters, I think. Also, I think he's trapped on Earth and wants to get out, and his powers were given to him by the Supreme? The Supreme is here? The cool, intimidating villain from Miraculous World Paris? Yes! Well, he honestly doesn't do much here, but he's still a cool guy, I guess. albeit a little boring, because he's working with some boring villains in their own right. How do you make the Supreme boring? Anyway, back to the modeler. He has nothing to him at all. His only purpose is to be the villain who wants to defeat the Stellar Force to take their special things to escape Earth, I think. Meh. He barely gets any screen time, so I have very little to latch onto in terms of personality or motivations. And his minions are even worse off. I don't even know their names. All I know is how much I don't know about these randos. Can they turn people into monsters too? I think so, but I don't know so? I'm so confused. And that confusion is what's causing me to give up on caring about them. Well, is it really giving up if I never tried in the first place? Anyway, the modeler only faces one of the heroes face to face. Miki, and she claps him and then he just runs off, so I don't even find him intimidating. To me, the modeler is a massive confusing joke of a villain who I don't care about in the slightest, I'm sorry. His minions are of a similar nature, so yay. New York frustrated me, but at least New York had Hawkmoth to come up with a very cool villain plan that engaged me. These guys? Who gives a rat's patootie? I don't even really know what they want the Stellar Matrix for besides escaping Earth, but why are they imprisoned here? Who did that? What are their ultimate plans? The answer is... yep. Nothing. Whatever, I guess. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss when Gabriel was the overexposed villain of the week during these specials. At least he's more fun and engaging a villain than the modeler, his minions, or even the Supreme are somehow? I don't know. But I do know that I'm just repeating myself now, so let's take one last stop before we get off this train. Adrian's getting his own special back in New York, fighting some eldritch abomination with the American heroes? That's actually pretty cool. I'm glad Adrian's finally getting some focus for himself again, really hammering home that he is the second main character of this show. I have my reservations about going back to New York, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. We don't know enough yet, so I'll just cross my fingers and hope it's good. So, as you've all no doubt observed by now, I didn't really vibe with this special, and that really is a shame. I can see how much love was poured into it, but in the end, it ultimately ended up feeling hollow and meaningless. The story treads on the toes of what I've loved about the main show and its characters, while introducing fresh faces that it parades around, pretending they hold some kind of significance without actually putting in the effort to showcase that in a more natural way. 9 months ago, I made a video where I ranked all the Miraculous World specials we had up to that point. New York, Shanghai, Paris, and London. And now Tokyo's been thrown into the wild, I might as well add it to my ranking. I'm sorry, I'm actually putting it at the bottom!
What? I'm sorry! No!
Explain yourself! You need to leave!
Look, New York at the very least had more characters I care about. They had a smaller cast which made that easier to do. The villains were way more engaging than they were in Tokyo. The story doesn't retroactively make characters worse. The animation is more consistently good than Tokyo. The switch between 2D and 3D felt kind of jarring, and while the 2D was excellent, the 3D wasn't... great. I never thought this special would get me to praise the New York special of all things, but I guess that's just a testament to what little it gave me to care about. So, how would I fix it? Just briefly, I'd cut the other 10 Stellar Force members outright. We don't need them. Make it so the Stellar Force comprises of just Miki and Kazuno. Then we can flesh out their relationship a little bit more and give more credence to their feelings for one another, because they only have each other, and so that gives more time for their bond to strengthen. Erase the past connection Kazuno and Kagami had. Make Miki the insecure one instead, but instead of her being like Kazuno, let her still have her headstrong personality. But allow Kagami and her to get closer as the special progresses. Miki keeping her feelings guarded and refusing to let anyone else in would give Kagami a way to relate to her, allowing her to help her out of the darkness. Maybe let Marinette try and help Kazuno's problem? Have him be supportive of Miki but not know how to help her? And make that cause him to doubt himself? Which Marinette can help with because she's intimately familiar with the feeling of inadequacy that comes with being a hero. This would give the narrative a lot more room to breathe without changing anything unnecessarily. I think it's a pretty good workaround, and I just came up with that in a few minutes at most. How could a team of professional writers not realize the damage having 12 pointless characters does to a story? Well, I'm not their mother. It isn't really my place to pretend I know what I'm doing any better than they do. Maybe they have some corporate higher-ups forcing their hand? I don't know. But I'm not forcing myself to think the special was good, I'm sorry. There were some good moments here, mostly from Marinette and Kagami. But that doesn't fix all the issues literally everything else brought to the table. Miraculous World Tokyo Stellar Force really is a fitting name, isn't it? Well, more so in an ironic sense, since, in my personal opinion, it isn't stellar. Like, at all. Instead, almost everything about it feels forced. Stellar forced. Ultimately, this could have been so much more, but it just didn't see its own potential. It couldn't understand what it was doing wrong when it was staring them right in the face. And because of that, I can't see myself rewatching this special anytime soon. And the Stellar Force spin-off series? Well, if the only good things about this special came from the characters we already knew, I cannot imagine a series following these new boring people without Marinette or Kagami to keep me invested will improve anything. I'll probably end up watching it and reviewing it though. Partly out of curiosity, but mostly out of obligation. Because this is my channel, and talking about Miraculous is what I do. And Miraculous World Tokyo is the first time in my life where I felt uneasy about that prospect. Just a little bit.
Here I am, I'm Postman Pat. I dropped your snail mail right at your mat. Your favorite postie, special delivery P.O. There you go, cheerio. You got that postcard, I got that address. Mail it to the Coast Guard, yeah, I send it express. Them birds be singing, that day beginning. Knock, ring, ding-a-ling, tiny package from Beijing. I feel I'm a really happy postman. I deliver all the goods from coast to coast, yeah. I'm the tip-top, cream of crop, won't stop, never drop until I fill your mailbox. I feel I'm a H-A-P-P-Y-M-A-N. I'm a happy postman. I feel I'm a really happy. I feel I'm a really happy. Listen up, bitch, postman.